So, okay, the game has started. I believe we'll be going into that soon.
But it's actually incredibly hard to hear you.
Yeah, it really is. The Canadian crowds are just absolutely awesome. They've been saving it up for 2 years, and it's finally all coming out. Okay, so now we are into the game. We have LG and Kane as the red Zerg in the bottom left, and we have Gosu DDE as the blue Terran in the top right. As I said, map is Cloud Kingdom. And
I'm sorry, there's going to be a few times where I just don't hear you stop saying things.
Okay. And I'm not really sure what to expect from this. Obviously, we play these players a lot on ladder, but they're some of the players who are less known, even though they are very skilled. So we don't see a lot of them in tournament play. I don't really know what to expect from Kane in ZVT, but DDE and TVZ, he's very much so a build order player. He has a ton of really unique, creative builds worked out. He always has weird timings and unusual things. He really just approaches the game in his own unique way. He doesn't copy other players at all.
A big chunk of his prize earnings actually came against you in the finals of a tournament.
Yeah, I was on a roll. I was just beating everyone. Then he came out with random builds on every map. He did that tank drop on Shakuras that no one's seen forever. He did Hellion Marauder timings that people don't do anymore. So, and we have a pause from DDE. His settings aren't quite right just yet, so that'll get taken care of shortly.
Kane is I think he's a young player actually, which of course does have its little sparks of immaturity, you could say, but he's a recent signing to Team Legion who has their new manager here. I got a chance to talk with him. They're really excited. And Kane, I think I'm not sure if he was trolling me or not, but he said he was 15 years old, which could make him very young, but he's actually the last couple seasons of the ladder been towards the top of the Grand Masters on North America.
Yeah, he plays a ton, really dedicated. That's one of the perks of being a younger player. You have a lot more time to dedicate to practice. Works really, really hard. Yeah. However, younger players are also more prone to nerves, especially as this is the first offline event for a lot of these players. So that could definitely factor into quite a few of their performances. Drone Scout coming out, checking the Watchtower, very smart from Kane. DD is a player who will proxy racks and will do 2 racks rushes a lot. But as we see, he's just doing the 1 barracks wall in. Looks like it will be Barracks Command Center, very fast expansion from him, no gases yet, and saving up minerals.
And what do you think about this as a Game 1 build? This seems to be more, supposing this goes down the normal path of just a 1 racks expand, which is pretty standard TVZ. It's not like it is in TVP where it's super, super standard. A lot of times we see Hellion openings or some kind of gas opening, but in this case it looks like it'll just be the 1 rack CC. Where do you think this goes from here?
It could go pretty much anywhere. This is kind of the all-purpose opening right now. Everything early game TVZ is kind of in flux as they try and figure out how to deal with the new Queen builds. 1 rack CC is pretty common, 14 CC is pretty common. Really, really fast Hellions is kind of a risky, aggressive opening. That's probably the next most standard. But from here he can go anywhere. He is putting down the double gas, 18 instead of 17, but a double gas coming, so really fast factory. And that should bring out Hellions, and then from there he can go a quick 3rd orbital and double upgrades and go for a macro game. He can go for Banshee and try and use Banshee Hellion to control Kane's 3rd base. Really, pretty much anything's open. You could do heavy bio timing if he wanted to.
And he does scout gasless opening from the Zerg player as well. There's a couple of varieties that we're seeing pretty widely in circulation by Zerg players. There's one where they get fairly fast speedlings, even off of just 2 bases. And then there's one where they go gasless and use their queens to really anchor for themselves as they get a pretty fast 3rd. I would imagine that's where we go. But of course, you could do like the 4 gas, which is a little bit more rare, I would say.
Yeah, it can transition it quite a bit. The only thing it really guarantees is he's not going to have speedlings out in time to control SCV scouts, so any kind of cheese.
I love that Overlord hunting.
Yeah, DD is great about that. He's one of the most persistent Terrans I've ever seen in terms of sending those early Marines out. And it's really smart because we see, even though Kane got these first 4, actually he could cut them off. It depends. Yeah, he might end up getting the Marines, but usually if you're careful with the Marines, you can be safe with them. You can save them. Here, Kane. Oh.
A little bit of hesitation. He can actually still run him down. Yeah. Oh. And DD's already on top of things, showing that little early game micro. I want to say this too. No bunker for DD. Now, on the one hand, that looks like, well, if you look at the game, he doesn't really need a bunker, and that, of course, is true, but you're still kind of you're hedging a bet by not doing that. You're basically saying, I'm going to get Hellions out before any kind of Lings show up, and by doing that, I'm going to save myself opportunity cost that is the 100 mineral bunker.
Yeah, when you don't see speedling, you're not particularly worried about anything as Terran. These first handful of Zerglings, they can be held off with just Marine control, so he's not really worried about too much at this point. If we look back at Kane's base, he does still not have any gases. He is going, but he also only has 4 queens, so he's not doing the dedicated queen build just yet. We should be seeing those extra 2 start
macro hatch
just now.
Is macro hatch before 3rd standard? Do you take the 3rd?
That's very, very uncommon. Right now, he should be either starting 2 more queens, or he should be starting as 3rd base, depending on how greedy he wants to be.
2 more queens to get up to 6, really, off of 2 base? Is that normal? 6 queens off of 2 base?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's the more defensive opening. That's what you do if they're rushing for Hellions. Against 1-rack CC, it's okay to take the 3rd hatchery and then get the 5th and 6th queens.
2 tech labs and a 3rd tech lab. This is definitely going to be that Marauder Hellion.
Yes, it will be. And DD loves this build. He's loved it for a long time, since back in the beta. And it is the 3 barracks version. There's a 1 barracks version where it's just a light pressure in front of the 3rd base or other tech. But with 3 barracks, that's going to be a dedicated attack. He is getting stim. He will wait for that to attack, and then he'll go with maybe 10 Marauders and 8 to 10 Hellions. This can be very, very powerful.
Is it a timing or an all-in? I mean, how much does the Terran commit to this?
It's a timing, but it definitely has to do damage. It's very, very aggressive. Okay. It's a solid attack. He's not going to have a 3rd orbital done just yet. He's not going to have very much tech at all, no upgrades. So he definitely has to do damage. And Kane is not taking that 3rd base, so he's not going to be incredibly exposed. He's not going to have that 3rd base just sitting out there waiting to die.
And it's actually a quite fortuitous thing that he's on 2 base. Am I correct in that? It feels like if he's pushing to that 3rd, it would be really hard for him to hold off both angles from that attack.
3 base can be held, but only if you're dedicating to units, and you do not dedicate to units at that point in the game unless you feel something's coming. And Kane, he's actually kind of lacking in scouting at this point. He only has this 1 Overlord over the cliff. He can see units coming out, but he doesn't have an Overlord over here as he should because it got sniped over the top left by DDE. So he can't actually go in. He can't see that there's no tech here. He can't look for a starport. He can't look for a command center.
He'll be a little late in the information, but I feel like this Overlord on this cliff is super standard.
Yeah.
And it absolutely sees the Marauders coming out. Is that enough time? Does he have enough time to react to it, you think?
It's really, really close. And one thing that's going to be pretty tough for him is his double evolution chamber is actually out here at the front. That's great for his Hellion run-bys, but those are going to be exposed and they're going to die in they're going to die in seconds for some Marauders, which will really hurt the effectiveness of those Zerglings. The one thing going
for Kane, ass bust, by the way. Like, normally I see Terrans push out with like 6 or 7 Marauders. He's actually waiting for a dozen or so.
And he's actually being very aggressive with those Hellions. Pretty quick Zergling speed from Kane, but he does not want to follow that. That's too many Hellions, so this will die if he chases them down. And this is actually the 2nd queen he's going to lose. That hurts a lot. Those queens really, really help. Transfusing spine crawlers. And here comes the attack out. Kane does see it with the Overlord, see how he responds. He's got a ton of Zerglings in production, but with that many Hellions, Zerglings alone aren't enough. He's going to lose all these Banelings here.
Oh, yeah, a few of the Banelings do go down. He's only got 4 left.
Finish.
A lot of Zerglings are coming out now. The price of these Hellions whittling down the Zerglings is they themselves are getting whittled down as well.
Yeah.
And with the Marauders, there's no more Hellions, actually. He's just not reinforcing that kind of tech.
Yeah, he does have a couple more Hellions up here, but they're not in the fight. That many Marauders, that's very scary versus armored units, but those Zerglings, those can rip them apart if he manages to clear out all these Hellions. With a couple of good Baneling hits, this force could actually just do almost nothing. That is a lot of units with stim.
There's that stim. The Zerglings are out of position. Hellions are actually whittling them down once again. He needs to separate the Marauders, but he just doesn't care. There's just too much DPS here, and there's actually too much tanking for the Terran player right now.
If the initial Banelings don't connect with the Hellions, the secondary ones don't either, so those Zerglings are still not going to be able to engage into that with all the Hellions behind it. And that's just too much stuff. He's not going to be able to really whittle that down with only Zerglings. The 1-1 does complete, but that's not going to be enough for Kane here.
Much more Banelings off the ramp. This is going to be his final hope. He's pushing forward. Banelings connect.
Oh, huge Baneling
Huge detonation, and 0 separation of the Marauders is actually starting to cost him here, but the rally of the Terran's pretty strong. A 4th hatch does go on behind this. Both evolution chambers will fall, but Greg, is he going to be able to produce enough? I
don't know. He had 26 more Zerglings production. That force, it is sitting there on creep. It is against Speedlings. There's only a handful of Hellions left, and 2 of them are really low health. Yeah. If he gets a good surround, he can hold this off now. But 2 more Hellions join from DDE.
Yeah, he does have 6 Hellions. Actually, he's pushing forward. There's the Banelings coming in. And again, no
he uses
separation
all the Banelings on the Marauders.
Yeah.
That's terribly inefficient. He needed those to connect with the Hellions.
And now Zerglings are trying to get a surround in on those Marauders. The Terran army is becoming smaller and smaller. And it's just reinforcements now.
He really doesn't want to engage off creep, though. He needs to keep those alive and mass up and wait for him to get on creep and surround him there. But it is getting whittled down. It looks like he will hold this off. And he does have Infestor Tech on the way, as well as that 4th base. So Kane, not the best control, but he's going to end up in pretty good shape. If we look at the Harvester count, it's dead even. That is a pretty big blow for Kane, but everything else going in his favor at this point.
Tech-wise, he's got Pathogen Glands nearing completion. He actually has 800 gas saved up. Of course, he's still not out of the woods just yet. There is still Marauders and Hellions here threatening that 3rd. Baneling's going to walk forward, trying to get us around. Hellions still staying alive. It seems to be that the Marauders are left on their own, and that is just too much. Banelings just don't do a lot to Marauders. Now Zergling's trying to get in here and surround, and they do get a good angle. They're now off creep, and the Hellions are being microed very well.
Really good Hellion control all through this from DD. He's kept these units alive. A lot of times it looked like he was going to get surrounded. It looks like he was going to get cleaned up, but he just managed to keep them alive. And this hatchery now very well could go down with Marauders hitting it.
I think, oh no, actually he's going to come in here with all the Zerglings. They're trying to get us around. The hatchery's on its last legs, but a lot of this Terran force is sharing in that pain right now. It's just 3 Hellions. They don't have the DPS to really threaten this, and there's a lot of Zerglings here. I think Kane is looking down the barrel of holding off this attack, and I think that'll be quite nice. You will notice, however, the supplies are very similar, and for a while now, DD has moved away from this timing. He's actually got a 3rd command center up, additional barracks, and double engineering base. Have the evolution chambers been rebuilt? Yes, they have, but they're not being used.
Yep. And as you said, a really nice move from Kane here. He does have creep spread at the 3rd base. That's going to delay that pretty significantly. But still continued fighting here, just continually trading the mill. Kane really does not want to go off creep. He is going to hold this off. He does finally win this battle decisively.
Yeah.
But he's wasted so many units fighting inefficiently. Had he stayed on creep, had he gotten a spine crawler down here, had he just fought a little more intelligently, that would have gone much, much better for him. And as you said, DD is kind of starting to establish himself. He's actually given up on this 3rd immediately. He's not going to wait for the creep to dissipate. He's actually sending it down here to take this base, which means he is taking a very aggressive stance in this game. He can't just sit back. He's going to be using that as a staging ground to push into this base.
Yeah, I'm actually very surprised he's already moving out. I don't think he knows what's kind of coming. One of the things I've noticed about this opening from Terran is if it doesn't do a lot of damage, it's extremely open to dying from a Muta build, which of course not what we're facing, but even so, Infestors are going to have their day here. I don't think they have Burrow. They do not. That's an upgrade that's actually completely essential for having any kind of Ling Infestor style here. But even just so, the Marines that are coming out right now are fairly few and far between. They are fairly upgraded. They do have Stim. I mean, all the essential upgrades are there. And with 1-1, let me see. Actually, it is completed. So these are well upgraded bio units. But the entire life of the Terran's on those bio units. And these are a lot of Infestors.
Yeah, although Kane was going, well, he has just now restarted drone production, but he was going pure Zergling Infestor production before that. So he invested a lot of resources into denying that 3rd.
That's a good point.
And if we look at the worker counts, DD is actually ahead in worker count, which is, that's just not a situation you want to be in as Zerg.
Right.
He does have the advantage.
Float back. I think he's basically like, oh, you got like 7 Infestors. I can't be out here right now.
Yeah, he realized there's no way he's holding that, especially this more exposed base. There's a much longer distance here, and this whole area is completely exposed to an attack. There's no way to hold that off. This creep has cleared now.
Blue Flame Hellion upgrade just now going. We've seen Poom and some other Terrans do this. This is one of the responses they're working on right now.
Yeah, DD, as I said, very unique player. He loves Bio plus Blue Hellion based builds. And Kane is going Ling Infestor with Banelings, so this is going to be absolutely great for him. He's not going to have Roaches in there to tank. He's not going Mutiling Baneling or anything of that sort. However, DD with really good micro, he is taking out a couple of those Infestors. He's forcing some mana to be wasted, and he has a really good spread up here. There's no way for Kane to really attack into that. If we look at Kane's 3rd base, he hasn't really populated with drones. He hasn't taken the 5th and 6th gas. He's just now continuing drone production. So DD really gotten himself into very comfortable shape with his control and the choices of engagements he's been making so far.
Through his aggression, I feel like he's kind of manipulated the game into a very nice macroeconomic situation. The Zerg player is right in line with the Terran player in terms of mining out his main. In fact, this is kind of weird. The Zerg's mining out his main faster than the Terran. I don't think I've ever actually seen that.
No, that does not happen. Literally does not.
I don't know how it happened.
We also have a Hive on the way from Kane. His 2-2 upgrades have completed, so he has a relatively strong army. But those Zerglings against a lot of Blue Hellions, as DD is mixing in, not sure how many Hellions he has, but with Blue Flame, as long as he controls them properly, all Zerglings are just going to melt. And that's actually a lot of units coming out here from DD. If we look at the supplies, 142 to 120 from Kane. Again,
and
not what
he's actually
Zerg
not
wants.
spending his money very well, to be honest with you, too.
No, he's not. He could have much more. He is just now getting his infrastructure up. He has a lot of barracks. He can continue production much more efficiently now.
This 4th is going to be challenged here. Bio is shoving down. There is Blue Flame Hellions on that ramp. Not a lot of Zerglings here. It's just Infestors now, and I think that's a huge mistake by the Zerg player. A lot of Infestors are going down, and DD is pushing forward. This is a critical loss. Not only is the 4th dead, but the standing army of the Zerg is gone.
And he lost 4 of his 5 Infestors there. A lot of them were full mana, and they didn't even use all of their all their spells. And yeah, he literally has nothing left.
46 Zerglings are coming out.
But with a couple of Blue Hellions in there, the Combat Shield Marines, and Kane realizes he can't clean that up, and he GG's.
You know what? I mean, the timing attack from DD was a little bit underwhelming as a direct result, but what was going on behind the scenes was because he was only a 2-base Zerg, even with the macro hatch, his larva usage was really kind of just towards surviving, whereas the Terran, he kept pumping SCVs out, he kept kind of going for double engineering bay. He was able to do a timing attack, but at the same time prepare for plan B. And I think that really, that was the story that won him the game. That
was a really important part of that. He was losing a lot of those battles, but he was able to keep the battle going long enough that he was constantly committing to both units and other stuff, whereas Kane was always on the back foot. He always had to spend his larva solely on Zerglings, and that's not what you want to do. He also lost a handful of drones. He lost the double Evo. So that attack, even though it didn't actually kill him, and even though it didn't look like it did a lot of direct damage, really, really put him into good shape going into that mid-game.
And I got to say, I mean, one other thing that could be discussed here as well is DD is no stranger to LANs. He's been to MLGs. He's competed in online finals like Greg was talking about earlier. And he, like, I've seen a lot of DD games. He's actually one of the guys that kind of beats me up on the ladder. He's just in my head that way. But when I watch him here, I'm saying to myself, this is how he plays when he plays his best. I think he's calm, cool, and collected. He's comfortable. He didn't have to travel that far, I don't think. That's what one of the nice things for WCS is that a lot of these guys are fairly close to Toronto.
He is from Toronto, I believe. So
okay,
yeah,
well, there you go.
This is pretty much hometown territory for him.
And like you said,
he has been around almost since the beta, maybe since the beta, and he was a Brood War player. He's been gaming for a long time.
Okay. Production, do you want a commercial now, or are we going to do it after this game? Okay.